If your association is due for a new AMS, you already know the problem. There are dozens of vendors in the market. You don't have months to research all of them. And the cost of choosing the wrong one in rework, frustration, and credibility with your board and members is significant. Most associations either try and do it themselves and get buried, or hire a consultant and spend far more than they needed to. There's a better way. Let me tell you what usually happens when associations try and do this themselves. They post a question on Collaborate asking, who loves their AMS? Which sounds reasonable until you realize that every association answering the question chose a system that fit their needs, not yours. It's a fast path to a long list of options that mostly won't work for you. Then there's the research problem. A third of the AMS market has emerged in just the last few years. These newer systems are what newer systems usually are: better, faster, and cheaper. Most associations have no idea these newer vendors even exist. And if you're tempted to ask AI for a short list, guess what? AI doesn't know about these newer systems either. You're not getting the full picture. And here's a bigger issue. Associations doing this themselves often default to the old playbook, a full blue sky requirements gathering exercise. That made sense 20 years ago when your system required heavy customization, as most systems did back then. But you're not doing that. You're shopping in a productized market. The vendors all have unique, specific capabilities. And what you need to know is how your workflows map to what those products actually do, not an exhaustive wish list built in a vacuum. What about hiring a traditional consultant? Better, but not without its own issues. Many consultants are most familiar with the systems they've worked with before, which skews their recommendations. And like doing it yourself, they often start with a full-blown requirements analysis, partly because that's how they've always done it, and partly because it means more billable hours. The resulting document is thorough, expensive, and typically winds up sitting on a shelf, collecting dust by the time your selection is over. No traditional consultant has all 30-plus vendors in today's productized AMS market cataloged, scored, and ready to match against your specific requirements. Beacon does. Beacon Tech Research is an AMS intelligence platform built specifically for small to mid-sized associations. We're vendor neutral. We take no commission, and we work only for you. What we do is score and rank every viable AMS in the market. Currently, that's more than 30 products, and we do that against your association's specific requirements. Then we give you a clear, defensible shortlist that you can take to your board with confidence. Here's how it works. It starts with a structured discovery questionnaire designed to surface your standard requirements and challenging edge cases that most vendors won't handle cleanly. It takes about an hour or two of your time. Then you get a full, scored, ranked view of the market, not a black box shortlist. A transparent picture of how every vendor performed against your criteria with documentation you can share with leadership. We start with a general comparison of the basics about the vendors that are at the top ranked in your list, and then we go after your most challenging must-have requirements and score every vendor in the list on those requirements. Next, we go after your most highly desired requirements and score every vendor on the list against those requirements. And then we go after your challenging nice-to-have requirements. And you notice we say challenging throughout here because there's no point in looking at the basic options that everybody can do and do decently. We go after the cases that are your unique edge cases and score the vendors on all of those. And finally, we give you a pros and cons worksheet of the top 3 finalists to show not how they compare against the market as a whole, but how they compare against each other. After that, you get the full ranked and ordered list. This is truncated to fit on the slide, but this lists all the vendors by your must-haves, your nice-to-haves or highly desired, and your simply desired requirements. And every vendor is scored and ranked on those. And then we show you the pricing so you know what each vendor will cost you, both in terms of the implementation cost and what the annual ongoing cost for licensing and support is. And then finally, there's also the Beacon discount. Every vendor in our system has agreed to provide you directly with the discount for having gone through our program. The reason for that is that we pre-qualify you so they don't spend a lot of their time spinning their wheels with their salespeople only to find out that there's a gotcha somewhere down the road in your requirements. We've already caused you to clear that hurdle. And this fee, this discount that you get, often meets or exceeds the cost for the Beacon service itself, so it ends up being a wash in the end. And then the last thing we do is we give you a demo script, again, tailored around your unique requirements. So each vendor can show you in your demos how they perform your most challenging requirements specifically as both the must-haves and the nice-to-haves and those challenging edge cases. And along with the script, we give you a survey that allows your team to review and rate how each vendor performed in real time while they're going through the demo on each task in the system, as well as an overall review of how they feel about the vendor's product and how highly they desire to work with that particular vendor. So let's review. Here's what you actually get. The final Beacon report includes the market landscape map, which I didn't show you here, where every vendor sits on cost, technology, and agility, a full vendor scoring and ranking table, separate breakdowns on your must-have, highly desired and nice-to-have requirements, a transparent cost comparison covering both implementation and annual licensing, a pros and cons analysis on your finalists, and scored results from your structured demos. Everything you need to make a decision you can explain and defend. Beacon offers 3 service tiers starting at $2,500. Self-service gives you the full scored analysis, heat maps, demo script, and staff survey, and you run the process yourself internally. The consultant review adds expert oversight, written guidance, and demos, and we do the scoring of the demos for you. And facilitated is end-to-end. We manage the demos, we facilitate the decision, and we review your contract before you sign. And here's something worth noting. Again, the vendor discounts Beacon has negotiated on your behalf typically exceed our fee. In most cases, the net cost to you is effectively zero. So how does Beacon compare to your alternatives? Doing it yourself means incomplete vendor coverage, a process built on other associations' priorities, and a requirements exercise that doesn't match how the product actually works. A traditional consultant engagement typically costs many times more, often starts with the same expensive requirements exercise, and is limited by whatever systems the consultant knows best. Beacon gives you coverage of the entire productized market, a data-driven process matched to how vendors actually work, a vendor-neutral analysis, and documentation your leadership can trust, starting at just $2,500. If your association is navigating an AMS decision, don't guess and don't overpay. Start at beacontechresearch.com. We'll get you a shortlist you can trust, faster, smarter, and with confidence. Thank you for your time.